I just think it's so important for people to realize that once you find your own worthiness, other people's opinions of you, of your work, of what you're doing, of what you did, doesn't matter.
Mm.
And it has been the most powerful thing I've ever learned, and something I hope I can pass on to my kids.
This is Calm AF, a podcast for humans who are hard on themselves. A podcast for the overthinkers, people pleasers, perfectionists, and overachievers. I'm Kristen Finch, and I'm going to teach you how to quiet that incessant negative chatter in your head. Because you know what a person with a calm mind can do? Anything they want. Grab your coffee, gorgeous soul, because today's the day you get Calm AF. Hey, gorgeous souls. Today's episode is a special one. Today, I'm doing something I haven't done before. I am bringing on one of my clients, and I'm going to ask her to share her story with you. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, for different reasons haven't, but it is something I'm going to be doing more often in the podcast, because while I love sharing messages with you every week, I do think it's very valuable to hear from people who have taken the Calm AF message and used it in their real lives and can share with you like how it went, the ups, the downs, all of the things to create the life that they want. I'm going to start this with my client, Courtney, who is creating the life she wants every day, but really started off with a bang. Now, before you listen to her story, please hear me. Do not use Courtney's story against yourself. Do not compare her journey to yours. I promise you that will slow you down. If you listen, you're like, ugh, why can't I do that? Don't do that to yourself. This is Courtney's journey. This is her story. Her story has some very exciting components. She was able to do some pretty impressive and dramatic manifesting in a very short amount of time. And that's not always typical. It's not my journey, really. But don't think for 1 second that she's a unicorn. Okay? Because while it's so fun the way so many pieces of the universe lined up beautifully for her, I can also promise you, because I've been with her the whole way, that she shows up every single day for her future Calm AF self. Okay, it's not just she just got lucky one time. Okay, she is relentlessly committed to creating this life that she feels alive in, that she feels fulfilled in. And so while the big fun parts of her story are big and fun, it's more of the daily practices. It's the showing up each day and starting her day with intentions. It's asking for coaching when she gets stuck instead of trying to figure it out on her own. It's using the tools instead of just thinking about how she should use the tools. Okay. So before I move this episode to my interview with Courtney, I want you to listen for what she keeps coming back to. That the biggest shifts for her, the reason why she finally made these changes after giving up on herself time after time after time, was not just that she learned the tools, but she had this built-in accountability. That was part of my old Rewired program. I worked with her as a client, and then she joined Rewired. That was what served as her constant reminder to keep showing up. So it's not just about learning these things, it's about showing up every day. The daily intentions kept her on the path. The calls kept her engaged and involved in the process. This is what my new forever program, Calm AF Life, was designed for. Okay, I created the Foundations course. That's the first part of the Calm AF Life program. That's where I teach you all of my tools, how to regulate your nervous system, how to feel your feelings, how to change your mindset, how to protect your energy. But that's not all. It's not just enough to know the tools. It's that accountability piece that makes such a difference. So I included that also, the accountability and community part of the program, so that you get daily, weekly, monthly reminders to stay on your future self path, or to hop back on it when you fall off. Because you will sometimes fall off. Life will get busy. You'll have some rough days. You'll go through something really hard where you'll be in some transition period and you will forget your tools. And that's what Calm AF Life is for. And that is why I made Calm AF Life lifetime access, so that you know you are always, always welcome. You can always come back. You can stay as long as you want. You can come and go. This is yours. Calm AF Life is yours to use however you want forever. Now, It technically begins January 1st, the course and the accountability, but early enrollment begins Friday, November 25th. And if you join in the first 3 days, you will get some bonuses. You'll get the Future Self Workshop. You will get early access to parts of the accountability portion. You're going to get those daily reminders, daily love letters, and you will get the resolutions workshop, which is everyone's favorite goal setting process. And if you sign up in those first 3 days, the price is $1,000 off. So it's $19.97 instead of $29.97. And yes, there are payment plans available. Go to the link in the show notes and trust me, this program is a no-brainer. It's like Calm AF all the time, anytime you want it. And I'm so excited to welcome you in. All right, without further ado, Calm AFers, meet gorgeous soul Courtney.
Okay, so welcome, Courtney. Your story is it's such an example of what's possible. It's not always what we think we're capable of. It's the thing that we want to create. Your story represents the thing we want to create, that there's this little part of us that isn't really sure that we're going to be able to. Just the transformation and your I am not giving this shit up. You can't take this from me attitude. I really think it would be so helpful to everyone who listens to hear someone who has gone through the whole process and gotten kind of to the other side where it's that's the outcome, right? This is what I want to create. You create it and you get there and it's oh, but I'm already moving on and I'm not ready to stop yet.
So I was a very ambitious kid, very athletic, very scholastic, and really took charge. Had no problem being the leader. I let my light shine brightly. I didn't let the world tell me who I was until it did. And that started happening in high school, where I started hearing different stories and started believing them. And while I still had lofty goals, I feel like my light dimmed, and it has continued to be that way for a very long time. So I got married out of college, did everything by the book, got married, my high school sweetheart. And then we moved for a job it was a great career, but I was not happy. Not myself. And it wasn't me. I wasn't myself.
What were some of the stories that you started hearing? What were the seeds being planted in high school that kind of started this?
Yeah. I was given a lot of responsibility as a high schooler.
Yes.
In
oh
the
my
community.
Gosh, this is one of my favorites, right? It's I remember we were talking one time and you're they gave me the keys to the school. And I was wait.
Yeah. I know. Who does that to an 18-year-old? But yes, I had keys to the school. I was doing the accounting for one of the classes and handling money on a daily basis. And pretty much checking myself in and out as I pleased. But that's where it turned, I think, senior year, when I had all that responsibility and I was leading. I started getting that backlash, and people didn't like me leading. And that could be the story I was telling myself too. But I realized that being bigger, in a sense, wasn't a good thing, because I lost all my friends. Literally, I have 0 friends from high school. And I left wanting to leave the state. I was not going to stay in that city. I'm gone. Peace out. You guys have a good life.
Yeah. So, there's always the story we tell ourselves, and then there's the things that we observe, right? And I think when you are a person who does kind of shine, has the light on them, there's always people who don't know how to handle that and who don't know what to do with it and want to kind of make sure, put you in your place, dim your light, shut it off. Who do you think you are? So that's what happened to you, basically.
Yeah. I started to realize being smaller meant I fit in better.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I started getting some reoccurring themes of that I don't follow through. I'm just not good enough. I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be the top. And looking back, it's just crazy to think that I don't feel like I was very successful in my career, but looking back, I crushed it going into, like, I got all the job prospects possible. Like, I got to choose. And no one else in the school got that. Like, I have to give myself credit. But again, I didn't think I was worthy of it.
And that's safe, right? Like, if you lost all of your friends and got so dulled down in high school to the point where you wanted to leave the state, it wasn't just like, get me out of here. You were like, get me out of the state. I mean, of course, like, when who you are naturally is a person who's really bright and ambitious and all of the things, right? Like, it's happening again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting all the attention because I'm getting all the job prospects and I'm killing it. And so it's like, how do I stay safe here? That's like where you keep coming back to, like, I just need to stay safe.
Exactly. And that happened again. I transferred from a big job in LA where I was going to school to Kansas City to follow my husband for med school. And first off, I was devastated. Mm-hmm. I got this awesome job that I had been working so hard for. And like, where's Kansas City? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any sort of job that I would even consider. But that was my option, to move there and pick something else. I am proud of myself that I wasn't satisfied with that. I didn't just stay in that position. I did ask and go pretty high up so that I could get other opportunities throughout the country. Like, I was working for a different office, even though I was in Kansas City. I wanted to do bigger things. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't do that in Kansas City. And so once I started doing that and getting accolades and moving up, I started not following through. I'm not meant for this. This is not me. I hate this. And I ended up quitting. And there's glimpses throughout my story where I think I truly saw myself. Yeah. And this is one of them, accounting being a very safe career path for me and stable. But I believe I always wanted to help people in some capacity. And watching my husband go through med school, but being told it was too hard, I was like, no, it's not. I could do that.
What? Like, it's hard?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to go back to school, having left this great career, and get my post back with all these 18-year-olds. And I did. I went and got my post back to go to med school. And while I was studying for the MCAT, I was pregnant and had a baby. So that kind of changed the trajectory a little. But I had it all planned out in my head. Mm-hmm. Everything was going to be better at the next step. That's how I've always lived, that everything's going to be better once this is over. Once med school is over, we'll be back in Washington with our family. I'll have a baby. We'll have grandparents to help, and we can just start fresh. Everything will be better. Well, my husband did not get the Washington job or the residency and got matched to Des Moines, Iowa. Again, I was just like, are you kidding me? I think we cried for 2 hours at the restaurant. It was just devastating because we had everything was going to get better. And so now what? What do we do about that? And I'm proud that we just decided after that weekend, we were going to feel everything, be pissed off, be angry, and then get over it and just move and try to make the most of it. And it's so funny. I actually ended up living across the street from one of my clients when I was working in LA. So just very weird coincidence.
Wow.
But, I started to get roots and just trying to figure out myself, but I'm still not happy. I'm not myself. I'm at that point wasn't working, but then I found a job to try and keep me occupied in accounting. And that just spiraled downhill. It ended up being an abusive work relationship, the most toxic place I've ever been. Such a low in my life. And I mean, it affected my relationship. I had a second baby during that time. I wasn't myself. Looking back, there's nothing about me that is myself in those couple of years. But I think I was just grabbing for anything that made me feel like my old self, my achieving self, or my leader self. I needed that. So it took a lot of therapy to get out of just that relationship. And then realizing I've been in a toxic relationship, most likely with my husband, for a while. And so that's not good either. Now we have 2 small kids. Our relationship's not great. We're in Des Moines, Iowa, no family around. But I don't want to not be happy anymore. I can't wait for the next step. That's not okay anymore. And doing all my research and, going down every rabbit hole possible, every therapy, I was out of options. I just didn't know what to do. And I stumbled upon your podcast and started listening, and it just clicked. And I knew you were my people. You just got it. And I didn't know how to express it at that time. And so I reached out, and I didn't have the means financially to really work with you, do anything. I mean, my husband's in residency. We have 2 small kids. Everything's tight. COVID's happening at this time. But I knew I had to work with you. That was it. I had to work with you. And it was for my sake, for my kids' sake, for my family's sake. This is just something that's gonna have to happen. And after a couple days of really brainstorming, I figured it out. I made it work, and it was worth everything. I mean, I can't imagine where I would be right now without having called you. And I look back at my notes. I think I called you in March of this year, and the amount of things that have changed in my life.
Gosh, really?
It's only March 2nd.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I've been with you forever. There's been you are so not the same person.
No, I know. I mean, look, I even showered and did my hair. Like, I'm wearing actual clothes. I have makeup on.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I thought it was at least a year. Oh my gosh. I think it's I think people can relate to your story, because it's like a lot of the people that find me have this similar story of like, I know who I am and I've been that before, but something happened that makes me believe I'm not capable of that anymore. Like, that's not who I really am, or I can't be that anymore. And I think for you, I love it how it's like every part of the story. Then I went here, then I went here, then I went here, and I really got successful. And then as soon as that happens, right, you're like, whoop, put on the brakes. Like, that's not safe. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to lose everyone. I'm going to lose my friends. And then, bringing in that story that you've been taught by people in your life and just in general of like, you don't follow through. I'm like, you so follow through. I love, Courtney, during our last round of Rewired, and we'll get into Rewired next, but there was like 2 calls left, and we were just getting off the call, and Courtney was like, so can I say something really quick? And I was like, sure. And she's like, so I know we only have 2 sessions left, but I'm not done, and I'm not going to stop coming. So you need to figure this out. Like, she gets shit done. And look, I did. I was like, okay, Courtney.
Well, I knew, the momentum's there. I can't stop now.
Yeah.
That having that every week is it's the little reminder I need to be that future self, to get that kick in the pants, that if I need that, why would I want to stop that?
Yeah. A lot of times the reason why people want to stop it is because once it starts working, you're like, oh, it's kind of like when people go on like medication, right? Like if they have like antidepressants and they start taking the medication, they're like, oh, I feel all better now. And then they stop taking it. I was like, it was the medication.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, this is how I feel about this work. It's like, that's why it's working. It's because you're showing up and you're taking the medicine, you're getting the coaching every week. So you're in, we're doing one-on-one coaching. And then I'm like, hey, I really think that you should come to this retreat. I think you should be a part of Rewired. So you figured that out too. Like, oh, I'm just going to leave my 2 little kids and my husband who's in residency. And, I'm going to leave Des Moines and go to Colorado and figure this out. So let's talk through the process of like the evolution of Courtney, starting from one-on-one, kind of like through Rewired up till where we are now.
So the group retreat, I wasn't so sure about it in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I thought one-on-one would be more productive, more efficient, maybe in my mind. But what could it hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And a break from the kids sounds pretty wonderful.
Yes.
So I decided, let's do it. I made it happen. Again, I don't know how it all happened and all the pieces fell in with my kids and Tony's crazy work schedule. But I got on that airplane and I remember thinking to myself, this is your chance to be who you really are.
Mm.
And you don't have to hide anything. You don't have to hold back anything. You can just come as you are. And I just felt so at peace flying to Colorado. And I arrived and met one of the participants who I love to death now. And we got there early and I was like, I don't want to just sit at the airport. Let's go get margaritas. It was in the early afternoon. And so we did. And again, I was not going to be anyone but myself.
Mm.
And you know what? If that's not okay with these people, like I don't have to see them again. That's okay. Like, that's fine. But I wanted to remember that piece of me. That's all I came to do, is remember that piece of me. And we had a great time over margaritas. She's actually a great friend now. And I just felt relaxed. I haven't felt that relaxed in a long time. And we get to the retreat. Everyone's kind of starting to say hi and mix and mingle and stuff. And it's just this very calming energy. It was just like everyone already knew each other, but we didn't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was safe and comfortable in a sense that it was like you could just snuggle up on the couch and share stories, even though we didn't know these people.
Yeah.
And I just found myself that weekend. I found myself again.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember things that I like to do and that feed my soul, and not holding back what that sounds like if I'm cussing, or just being who I know I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's something I haven't seen since high school.
Mm.
And it was powerful. I came to the retreat very self-conscious about myself, very, just, again, making myself small. And I left the retreat being like, you're a badass. Like, let's do this. Like, we can do anything. Like, no need to be small anymore. Like, that's done.
It's done. And it was such a moment, right? Like, we did this, this future self visualization. We were outside. We were in this like stone amphitheater with ticks fucking everywhere. Which I didn't know. Everyone was like, there's a lot of ticks. I was like, what?
Maybe not that place next time.
But we were out there outside in Colorado. It was beautiful. And, I led everyone through this future self-visualization where you are stepping into who you are. If you take away all the layers and you take away all the stories, we had already done that work the day before of like, here's the stories that I've been like carrying in my backpack everywhere I go. And this is what I'm going to let go of. And so we go into the future self-visualization of like, okay, without all of that, without your little safety backpack, who are you? go meet your future self, right? Like go see what she wants, what she's got for you. What does that life look like? And I always say the thing about future self is it's not actually like the future. Like it's who you are now. It's just not the current reality you're living. You can step in and align with that very quickly, which is, Courtney is living proof of that. But Courtney sat there and journaled, and I happened to get a picture, right? Like I usually am not taking pictures while I'm coaching, but I took pictures of everybody in that moment. And it was like the moment that you aligned with your future self. Everything kind of crystallized. Like you were like, oh, you saw what you were wearing, you saw what you were doing, you saw where you were living. And that was the thing. Like there's a lot that's already, so much has changed since then.
Yeah. It still blows my mind. So coming to the retreat again, like we're not well off. Like we aren't in the capacity to purchase a house. Like we are in a very small townhome, lots of kids running around, just chaos.
Yeah. Med school. Yes.
Yeah. Obviously I saw myself differently. I even looked this up because I thought it would be interesting to get the words I used. I said I was light and rested, empowered, calm and flowy. I'm in an all white house, sun shining in through many windows. There's a deck overlooking water. It's peaceful, calm. I'm playing the piano, just playful. And none of that was true as of when I was writing that, but that's what I saw as myself. So I aligned right with that. That's who I am. That's where I want to be. That's where I feel my energy is going to be most calm. And this is beginning of April, just to put it in perspective. The retreat's beginning of April. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting at a table for my mom's group, and one of my girlfriends says, hey, we're thinking of, buying a house, maybe putting ours on the market. And I knew the area she was in, but I really didn't know much more. I said, hey, just shoot me over the address just for fun. Zillow is a fun app to play on.
Yes.
And dream and, be your future self. And so I looked it up, and I think the group was praying at this time, and I was on Zillow looking at her house. And I looked at her. I was like, that's my house. Like you have to let me know before you sell your house. And she's like, okay. We're probably looking at like December, springtime, maybe. So that's perfect. My husband will have a job. He doesn't even have a contract right now. So like, we couldn't afford a house, but we need him to start working as a physician. And didn't think much of it, just went on. I don't even think I showed Tony. And then May 5th. So this is now 2 weeks later, 7:30 in the morning. She texts me, and it's a day that Tony had happened to work an overnight shift. So he was home. And she said, hey, I'm so sorry, but we just bought a house and we have to put our house on the market this weekend. And I wish I could do something for you, but like, that's just the reality. And I'm still living my future self. Like I am doing everything to align with that person I was on the retreat. And I was like, okay, that really sucks. Like that sucks because that can't happen right now. But then I'm like, can't, or should I see what would happen if I asked? What's it going to hurt? We had been working on Tony's contract for his job for over a year at this point, and nothing. It was just a headache after headache. And so talked to Tony, showed him, and he said, let's just call the lender and just have him run the numbers as if we had a contract. And we did, left a voicemail, didn't really think much more of it. And he calls back right before business close and said, this is doable. I just need a contract. And so we're kind of stalling on the phone because we're like, yeah, we know we've been working on this contract forever. And I'm not shitting you. The contract came through on Tony's phone while on the phone with the lender, exactly what we needed. And we're like, well, hey, can we forward this to you? So we did. We put in an offer that night without even seeing it. I just knew it was my house.
Yeah.
I saw myself at that place and put in an offer. I mean, the whole buying a house thing, it took a couple days, but they accepted. And I was like, holy shit, we just bought a house.
My house.
My house.
My house.
Yeah. And the craziest part is I grew up at the lake. I went to college near the ocean. I am a water girl stuck in Iowa.
Yeah.
And this house has a gorgeous, beautiful pond in the backyard that you can kayak on, paddleboard. And so I'm overlooking the water, just like I visualized in Iowa. Iowa. I know. So it just works out perfectly between what they need. She ends up leaving us, like, we don't have chairs, we don't have TVs, we don't have a washer and dryer, and we're broke at this point.
Yeah.
And not even sure how we're purchasing this house, let alone. And she's like, oh, we were just planning on leaving those things. I'm like, oh, perfect. Yes, of course you're going to leave those things because I need those things.
Oh my gosh.
And so it just went by perfectly. No hiccups. I mean, when we needed the money for closing, Tony's bonus came through the day before. I mean, I was just very trusting that if this is what was meant to happen, it was going to happen. Yeah. And I'm not going to stress about it because this was a crazy dream.
That is the key, right? So this is the part that requires the trust. This is the part that I think requires you to, like, what you did at the retreat was learn how to embody the feeling state of the future self, right? Like you learned how she feels, how you feel without all the story. So you learn how that feels, you learn how it feels. We get really in touch with, like, what does it feel like in your body to feel calm and light and, free and all of the things that you wanted to be able to feel. You get into the feeling state, and that is the place where things are just able to flow. It's when we get stressed out or we start trying to, like, control things, right? Like, I'm going to try and control how this house thing happens. I'm going to try and control, it requires, and I don't mean there can't be any stress because of course we have human brains, but I think knowing all of this was happening and you were just allowing it, you weren't forcing it, you were just constantly getting back into the feeling state of who you became at the retreat. And that was one of the things too. So that story aside, like, unbelievable, right? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But what you also did that I think is so important for people to hear and to say, like, this is possible. Like, you don't have to sit around and think about it. You came up with some things at the retreat where you're like, I know there are some things that I need to do when I get home, right? Like, I know there are some changes that, like, I literally cannot spend one more day not having this conversation or not living in this way. And what most people think is, like, you get to this place, like the retreat is definitely a place where it's very inspiring. You feel very, like, lit up and connected. And the reason why I always had, like, the after coaching for the retreat is because if that's all you get, a lot of times what happens is then you go home and life is waiting for you and you stop, right? You stop aligning. And so I think what I just loved, I remember talking to you Sunday morning before you left. And you were like, yep. So I get home at like 9 or something. And you're like, and then I'm planning on talking to this person. And I'm like planning on having this conversation tonight. I was like, oh, okay. Like, she is not spending one more minute not as this future self. That is possible. Like, we can just decide this is who I want to be. And we can start taking action now. What I think many people do is they spend a lot of time thinking about how should I do it? How should I, and you were just like, no, I'm just going to go and do the thing.
Mm-hmm. I was very myself at the retreat and I didn't want to let that go. And I knew walking back into my house, I was going to immediately be faced with those stories again. And I was scared that I would lose myself within the next day. I was scared that if I didn't make changes right away, that self that I just embodied and just loved was going to leave again. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I've done it too many times. So I did. When I got home, I had hard conversations. One of my big stories or lies about myself that I believe is that I don't follow through. And looking back, like, I followed through on that shit.
Yeah.
Like I said I was going to have a conversation, and I did that night.
That is also the power of other people handing you stories and you believing it, because for the whole time I knew you, right? Like from the minute you reached out to me and you were like, I'm going to figure this out, I'm making this happen for one-on-one coaching, there is not even a little bit of me that thinks had ever thought like, she just doesn't follow through.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you so believed this about yourself, I was like, what? Like, huh? And that is what happens, right? Like when we are either told that consistently by someone else or by lots of people, or we have gone through something, you were looking everywhere for ways that you weren't following through, when there were so many examples of how you super follow through.
Mm-hmm.
You were looking for all the ways that you don't follow through. And I was like, but what about this and this and this? And you were like, oh, I do follow through.
Yeah. But I think the approach I took was different than before, because I've had similar conversations multiple times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I was now doing this for me, not to anyone. I was doing it out of self-love for myself, because I knew what I deserved. I knew how I wanted to feel. I knew the energy I wanted to be around. And I was not going to push that aside anymore. Previously, I came at it with anger and frustration and just unknown and kind of in this weird not knowing what to do. But really, I do know what to do. I need to be myself wholeheartedly. I need to speak my truth and see what happens. And hopefully the people around me that I love will either accept that new energy and adjust to it and then become a better person, or they won't. And that will kind of give you answers. And it was a pivotal conversation. And we had this conversation 2 weeks before this house thing started happening. Like, it's just a lot of things happen so fast. But I think that's also the power of having ongoing sessions with the group, because I feel like behaviors can be cyclical and it takes time for things to show back up.
Yeah.
And you can be inspired and white knuckle it on certain things for a while, but there's going to be a time that that's not going to be true anymore, or you're not doing something, or someone's back in their old patterns.
Yeah.
So then what? I mean, you need that support to go forward and, again, figure out what's next.
What's different now? Like, how do you know now that those things might show up again, but you're never going to go back to that?
I think first off, sitting down and setting intentions every morning has been very powerful, because if I can get myself first thing in the morning into that future self, into the state that I want to be, I can ignore that background noise a lot better. And also, it reminds me that I do have old stories, and this future self comes with some baggage that might pop up, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're failing because, again, you're not following through. I think it has given myself the ability to be more graceful to myself and realize that I'm not doing it because I'm a failure. I'm doing it because I'm trying to prove this stupid story that I believed is true. And it's not, but I'm giving it power again. And that's when realizing it, noticing it, and you're like, shit, that's what it is. There's no reason to do that. Why am I doing that? Okay. Like, let's turn it around.
Yes. You know, like even when we were talking the other day during one of the group sessions, and it was like, oh, it's that again. It's my follow through thing again, you know, but it was like, and then you were like, all right, I'm done. Never mind. It's done. Like there wasn't like this, oh my God, I'm back here. You were just like, all right, no problem. I know I'm fine. Go ahead. Go to the next person. Right. It was just like done. That I think is also a testament to you showing up every day. This is daily work. Being in integrity and embodying who you really are is daily work, because the whole world really is telling you to be a certain way. Like there's the rules that we all have of like, this is what I should do. This is what I should look like. This is what I should eat or not eat, or, you know, like all of these things, all of these rules. And so the daily work, I think, really is, like you said, just a reminder. You've got stories, but they aren't true. This is who you are now. And it's when we don't have that consistency that like a daily, like for me, I'm the same way. And I believe everybody needs it daily because our brains forget very quickly. But I think this daily reminder of, hey, this is who you really are. Don't forget. And, oh yeah, you've got this human brain, this story. All of these people want you to be who they want you to be and follow their stories, right? But like, that's not who you are anymore.
And I've never been that. I mean, in reality, that's not who I am. Thinking back to like college through just recently, I mean, I would be a very serious, introverted, career-focused person, right? Mm-hmm. But that is so not me. Like I am so playful. I want that adrenaline. I want to be free and flowy. And yes, I'm type A, so let's get everything done and be organized. But that's not who I am. Like I want to have fun. And it's allowing myself to remember that. And you can be playful in everyday life. And being vulnerable, I think, has also been helpful in continuing this growth, because I have to let people in to know that I'm working on things so that, you know, they can either point it out or they can understand where I'm coming from. They don't think I'm doing something in spite of them or what. But instead, I just tell my truth and be like, this is what's going on. I'm telling this stupid story about myself and I've realized it and I know it's wrong. And so let's move on. I'm going to turn it around. And if I do it again, just give me a little nudge, because I probably am not realizing it. Because it's something I really want to do or a goal I've set for myself and I want to follow through. So since I was a little kid, pre-world crushing me, I have wanted to be an Ironman. Since I was 11 years old, I have watched the Coeur d'Alene Ironman, and it's just part of who I am. And I have lost that over the years, because I didn't think I was important and I didn't come first. And now that I'm realizing, like, that 11-year-old girl still wants to do an Ironman, and she said she would do it. And I know she follows through. And the 20th anniversary since the first one I saw is going to be in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, this June. And so I signed up and said, let's do this. Granted, I am very out of shape after 2 kids. Oh my gosh. But my goal isn't to get on the podium. My goal is to get to the finish line and have a smile on my face and know that I did it. And I achieved that big goal of mine and had fun while doing it. That's the playful piece again. But I hired a coach because, let's be honest, I don't have a ton of time to just dilly around with training stuff. Like if I'm going to do this, I need someone to tell me what to do, and I'll do it and I'll get there. But I noticed pretty quickly, like I got everything set up, but I started ignoring certain things and not doing training workouts like I was supposed to. And again, my thought pattern went back to, oh, you're just going to fail again. Like you lost the race entry money. It's fine. You'll quit in a month or so. I just kept kind of beating myself up a little bit, but I couldn't figure out why I'm doing this again. Why am I giving up this opportunity I have to accomplish this big dream. And then we get on the phone and you're like, oh, you're just proving that you don't follow through. Oh, fuck, Kristen. Yeah, of course. I know I don't follow through. And so I made it a point to tell the triathlon coach. I had a call with her, and probably not a conversation she usually has with her athletes, but I told her, like, this is where I'm at. This is not who I am, but it's a story that creeps back up. And I need you to hold me accountable, because I don't want that story to run my life. And I want to do this. I'm in it. I am in it all the way. But I'm also dealing with a little bit of baggage that follows me sometimes.
Yeah.
And she was very receptive, and just, it's crazy how being vulnerable leads to more vulnerability. I think it's incredible.
Yes. Yes. Sometimes I think when people start going through this work, they have or me, because, my whole thing is Calm AF, right? And people are like, oh, I really want to be calm. And you still are the same person, right? Like, it's about, like, type A is part of your personality, right? Like, that is just part of who you are. It's how you're wired. It's how you're designed, right? Like, this is partly who you are. And so I think also understanding, like, the things that you are actually so good at are often the things that are what other people are trying to dim.
Yeah.
Right. Because especially if you're like really good at it, like, especially if you've like got the keys to the high school, right? Like, people are like, well, like, it's just intimidating for them. But I think knowing too that, going through becoming who you always have been, without all the stories, that's who you are. That's still who you are. And it's even, you were able to kind of let it shine and let it be the thing that you lean into instead of shutting down because of.
Mm-hmm. It's the all or nothing thinking that I think type A leads to all the time. And so where I would be on one extreme or the other, oftentimes I'm now able to really zoom out and see, okay, what's good enough? What's good enough? Like, does this need all that extra fluff to it? More importantly, like, what energy can I bring to this project or to this room? Right now, that's more important to me than the little details that take up the time. And if it's not someone's 10, that's okay. I mean, I'm doing.
How'd you get to that place?
I think it's just been the repetition since the retreat. Like, I know my worth at this point. I know that I can do whatever I set my mind to, but it's knowing that slowing down is also productive. And I'm finding the rest that I got at the retreat is something that I've held on to tightly, because I've never felt so rested. And that was a good feeling. So I want to keep that, obviously not to that extent, but I'm not going to stay up late doing something anymore, where I used to pull all-nighters all the time to finish projects for people or set up events and stuff. And I'm just not doing it. That's not healthy for me. It doesn't help me the next day. It's not the energy I want to bring the next day. I would rather not get something done or have it be quote unquote shitty, but still be good enough and be well rested and come happy and playful and relaxed. I think that's more important now.
And why is it okay for that? Like, as you've been, so April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Oh, it's like been 6 months, since the retreat. Thinking about that, 7 months since we worked together. That's so nuts. But thinking about, that's what you did, right? Like, you embodied your future self at the retreat. It felt amazing. And you were like, I am not fucking going back there. I don't know what you all are doing, but I'm not going to do that anymore. And you went home and it was your priority. You're like, I'm going to show up daily so that I can keep moving forward. And you've done so many, totally different person, like we said at the beginning, but you've put these things, you haven't just thought about them, like you've put them into practice. I remember you saying like, I've been wearing dresses, like, I take a shower and I get ready again because I matter. And I've been slowing down, and you're in charge of this preschool organization. And in the past, it would have been like, you're spending 40 hours on it. It's this volunteer thing, like, how can I make it perfect? How can I make sure every single person who goes through this thing thinks it's perfect? And you made a really conscious decision to not do it that way, right? Like, I'm not going to do it. And in your personal life and in that part of your work life and all of the places, you really have, let yourself slow down, let things take time, do things shitty, let yourself do a good enough job. And has your world fallen apart?
No. And I've gotten more projects done.
Oh my gosh.
If I would have been the old perfectionistic Courtney, because I'm getting something done. It's not perfect, but it's further along than it would be if I was just stressed out about doing it and having it be perfect.
Yeah. That's what I want people to hear from your mouth, not mine.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm like, I can say it all day, but people are like, okay, Kristen, but just this truth of, I promise, when you slow down and you get in alignment with who you really are and the things that really matter to you, and you prioritize that over what other people think, and you prioritize speaking your truth over making sure nobody's feelings are ever hurt. And like, when you start doing that and you live your life in alignment with who you actually are here to be, you do get more shit done, and your relationships do start shifting, and it does get clearer and clearer about what's for you and what's not for you. That is the piece that just takes, I guess it takes the trust of like, all right, and that's why I'm like, I need you to say it. I'm not paying you to say this.
No.
This is what's possible.
And it's being intentional every day. I'm not saying every day is perfect, because I've come some weeks and I am not in a flowy state, but I can get right back and I can recognize it. And I think that's the key is, again, not the all or nothing. Let it be. And, you can change it around. I just think it's so important for people to realize that once you find your own worthiness, other people's opinions of you, of your work, of what you're doing, of what you did, doesn't matter. And it has been the most powerful thing I've ever learned, and something I hope I can pass on to my kids, because there's no limits anymore. I'm not scared of being too big. I'm not scared if I do something shitty, someone call me out for it. Like, yeah, sorry, I didn't have time. I needed to sleep. I've just kind of embodied that now, and it's transformed my life. It really has. I've been more productive than I've ever been, but I've also been more rested than I've ever been. I'm having more fun. I'm just prioritizing myself. I am prioritizing fun, and everything else follows.
Yes, it's so good. Like, I just need a second. This is just it, right? Like, and even just what you said, the impact. You are learning how that self-worth and that self-love, when you lead from that place, I'm going to start to cry. When you lead from that place, it's not that you care less about people. It's that you care so much about yourself that it's okay if people don't see your worth. You're like, oh, no problem. I see it. I don't need you to see it. I see it. Right? Like, I would like it if you saw it. That's also where like relationships start becoming clear. Like, when you care for yourself and you love yourself so much that you just don't tolerate things that don't work for you anymore, and you start seeing like, oh, that person doesn't see me like that. Like, then you get to, it just provides clarity. Like you just say like, okay, well, that's good to know. But yeah, I just think, you learning how to embody that, and your kids are little, they get to see it. Like, this is the mom they're going to get to know. This is going to be the mom they're going to remember, right? Is the one who, is able to slow down and play, and is able to, and not perfectly, because listen, having little kids is a fucking nightmare, right? Like,
Amen.
they just are, right? Like, they're the best and the worst. I always say this. I'm like, there's nothing like the love you have for your kids. I'm like, oh my God, would you shut up? Like, it's both. Right. But like, just the ability for you to be able to not get into the, when they're upset or when they're being kids, right, that they know that you are their safe place, because your energy is so clean and stable. You are the Calm AF energy, right? You are the sun, right? And it's like, you are the center of the universe of this family, because that's what the moms are, right? And like, you being able to center your energy, that lets them come to you, and you're going to be able to teach them all about feeling your feelings, right? And like how to do it shitty, right? Like, you get to teach them at such a young age, like, just thinking of like, what is that worth for them to not have to do all of this shit that you're doing?
I think it's huge.
It's huge. It's just like, it's for you, it's your life. But you doing that, putting yourself first and prioritizing and being intentional every single day, and having a place to come every single day to remind you to be intentional. Yes, that is affecting your life. But if you think for 1 second it is not impacting everyone around you, you're crazy. Because it's the same way as like when someone is like revved up in the room with you, like, that revs you up. So you being able to bring yourself back and be like the center that they get to come back to, it's everything. And bonus, you get to manifest the fucking life of your dreams.
Exactly. I mean, even for the retreat, coming back to the kids, my 4-year-old has struggled with sleep his whole life. And I'm talking, continues to wake up 4 or 5 times a night, is up for good by 5 o'clock, like a newborn, but having a shitty toddler to deal with the next day. And it's always been a problem. We have tried anything and everything we can get our hands on. And the most interesting thing happened is after the retreat, and I'm starting to embody this future self, and we move into this new house that has new energy, and I'm being very intentional about the energy in this house. Guess who sleeps through the night most nights? It's crazy. So it does affect the people around you. I mean, that's huge. He's sleeping, probably wakes up one time a night, a couple times a week, but gosh, do you know how much better sleep I'm getting?
This is the power of learning how to be the master of your own energy. Right? The one who can walk into any room. And it's funny, like, we'll come back to the beginning of the conversation where you were like talking about the feeling when you got to the house, right? You're like, we don't know each other. Like, and it was like the most calming. And I was like, yeah, it wasn't on accident, right? Like, that is what you can, like, when you know how to get yourself to that place of total calm, no matter what is going on around you, everyone will be like, ooh, I like that. I want that. Right. And that's why I always say, I'm like, that's why the retreats are what they are. Right. Because I know how to fucking do that. And knowing how to teach other people how to do that, like, they get to go home and they get to be that in their homes, and their kids start sleeping better, and their kids start being able to like process the emotions differently. And their partners, oftentimes, a lot of times people will say like, he's just different. I don't know. He's just acting different. And that doesn't mean that it's the forever thing, but that is the power of knowing how to manage your own energy instead of spending your whole life trying to manage everybody else's. All right. So what would you tell people about like people who are like, I just don't know if it's possible to like actually change?
Well, I would say that if you want something different and you see something different for yourself, you have to break the cycle somehow. You have to stop and think about it, do something about it, and change your reaction. Otherwise, you're going to keep doing the same thing, living the same life, having the same fights. And you're going to keep having this mediocre life that you deserve better, but it's too hard to get somewhere else. But it's not. It's just as hard to stay stuck. I would say it's harder to stay stuck now having been in both than it is to push through, have hard conversations, and live the life that you deserve. You have to jump all in. You have to give it your all. You just need to trust the process. You need to trust yourself. You know what's right. Your body knows what's right. You just need to learn to trust it again. The retreat also helped me learn the power of my body again, that it is so powerful and tells me so many things if I would just listen to it.
That's part of the conversation we didn't even get into. I feel like we might need a part 2. The part 2 is like you learning how to just feel the feelings.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of it being, avoiding them or trying to figure out a plan to make it better. It's like, sometimes it's just hard.
Yeah. Sometimes it just sucks. And this is coming from someone that, borderline alcoholic through COVID because I couldn't deal. And I don't really touch alcohol anymore. I don't have those vices. I'm not numbing out to screens or TV at night. You'll think this is funny. So I mentioned at the retreat that I always watch Grey's Anatomy at night. And I've watched through the entire million seasons 7 times or something.
Oh my God.
And I think it's an anxiety thing just to keep something familiar playing at night. And I have realized since the retreat, I have not watched Grey's Anatomy.
Oh my God.
I just realized it the other day when it popped up on Netflix because I haven't been watching much TV. It's like, I don't listen to Grey's at night. I was like, wow, like I don't need that noise to cancel out the inner critic anymore.
Yes. I don't need the alcohol. I don't need the noise. I don't need the shopping. I don't need that. Like all of the things that we try and do. It's like, once you learn you're worthy, and it's just these thoughts that you learn how to manage, like you learn the tools, how to manage these thoughts. You don't have to numb them out, and you don't have to drown out the chatter. You can like be in charge of the thoughts, like, oh, you again. Right? Like, I don't even have to think. I don't have to make it a big deal. Like, I'm just done. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Exactly. And it'll pass. Like, it's not going to stay there forever.
Yes. There's so many things in this conversation that I didn't know, like the Grace thing, the, sleeping thing, like all of these.
Oh, the other thing, I mean, just thinking of it. So in my house, my dream house, I had a piano, right? And now I have a piano, and I always wanted a library room. Who's going to have a library in their house? And by Friday, I will have a library room with a sliding ladder, like Beauty and the Beast. And it's just like, what? It's just, you just make it happen. Like, if that's what you're wanting and that's what you're doing, like, you make it happen. It's just the coolest thing. I'll send you a picture when I get it all done.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You are the example of imagine it, know that you're worthy. Don't worry about how, just trust. Like, you're going to figure it out. You have even the piano was like and I got it for free.
Yeah. I've always wanted a piano, and I called the moving company just to see how expensive it would be to move a piano. Realized it was way more expensive than I wanted to pay for a used piano. And 10 minutes later, he calls me back saying that a woman he knows donated a piano and would like to gift it to my family. Like, and it's a beautiful piano. Who does that? Who gets that? It's so crazy. So crazy.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Is there anything else that you would tell people out there who are listening and thinking like, yeah, but how do I know?
Yeah. I think the power of the retreat is having people around you and seeing you as yourself and realizing that that's okay. And actually you're a badass. And why would you live any other way? And then hearing their stories, but also seeing their true self and potential and being able to support them along the way and cheering them on, I think has been just as much fun for me getting to know these awesome women than just to work on myself alone. So coming back to one-on-one versus group, like I needed that group energy, I think, to find who I really was. Remember that, realize it's okay, and bring it back home.
Also, relentlessly committing to doing it shitty, right? Like showing up every day doesn't mean every day you're like, I am just in my future self, right? Like showing up is just sometimes being like, fine, I'm fucking my future self right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And that future self gets mad and yells at her kids sometimes and has shitty days.
Yes. And overeats and overdrinks and does the old things, right? Like that happens.
Yeah.
But you just keep showing up. You just keep showing up. And I think you are just such an example of what's possible. So thank you for sharing so freely, so that people can hear it from a real person, not just from me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, honestly, you have changed my life in the past 7 months. And it's crazy to say, but I am a totally different person.
Yes, you are. Like that boggles my mind. 7 months. Like that doesn't seem right.
You can't even grow a baby.
You can't even grow a baby. You will become a whole new human in a time less than you grow a baby. It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. And before you go, one more thing. So as you know, I am slightly obsessed with helping as many humans tap into their calm AFness as possible. So if this podcast has helped you, would you please leave a review, make sure you're subscribed, and share it with your friends. Also, make sure you head on over to KristenFinch.com to see how you can work with me. You can sign up for my emails and get any other goodies I have available. Until next week, I love you so much. I am so grateful that you're here. I'll see you next time.